These vampires don't sleep in coffins lined in taffeta. You want to kill one, you drive a stake right through its heart, and sunlight will turn them into crispy critters. Let's get into it. And the movie I'm referencing is 1998's John Carpenter's Vampires. Yes, this movie came out in October of 1998. I actually saw this opening weekend. It's rated R, hour and 48 minutes long, had a $20 million budget, which the studio slashed before production, which sent Carpenter reeling into condensing his story and cutting things out to fit the budget. And when it was released in October, right before Halloween, it grossed $20 million domestically. Now, this movie was directed by John Carpenter, and as we all know, John Carpenter is my favorite horror director, hands down. I love John Carpenter's films more than any other horror director. I'm not saying I don't like those other horror directors, but John Carpenter's always been my favorite. And as we all know, John Carpenter is a man of many talents. He writes his own movies most of the time. He scores his own movies, and he has his name above all of his titles. Now, in this movie, he didn't write the script. He did a rewrite on the script, but when he went after Escape from L.A., which did not do that well at the box office, which I do like, by the way, even though it's not as good as the original Escape from New York, John Carpenter was thinking about giving up directing. He had enough of Hollywood. He didn't like working with the studios anymore. He said it stopped being fun. He was presented with the script for Vampires, which was based on a novel, which I have read, but I will say I like the novel, but I like this movie better. I know it's not always the case with movies that are based on a novel, but in this case, I like the movie better, although I do enjoy the novel. It's been a while since I've read it, but they definitely changed a lot of things up from the novel, which I'm not going to get into, but they did change a lot of the story around. The basics of it's there, but the movie's definitely a lot different than the novel. Carpenter was presented with two scripts for this film. While he liked both of them, he wasn't completely satisfied, so he did an uncredited rewrite on the script, got it to where he wanted, and then he went into production. And when he was looking to cast, I'm going to get in the cast here, James Woods came in, and John Carpenter wanted James Woods for the role. He said James Woods had that quality where he could just be an absolute savage. He wanted him to be as savage as the vampires on screen. And James Woods pulls it off. James Woods is a fabulous actor, and he's great in this movie. I love him as Jack Crow. Daniel Baldwin is in here as Jack Crow's right-hand man, Montoya. Cheryl Lee plays Katrina, a hooker who they end up hooking up. Well, it ends up tagging along. She's bit by the vampire, and they use her to track him. Tim Guinea plays Father Adam. And you'll remember Tim Guinea was actually in the first Blade. He's not in it much, but he's in the first Blade. He's been in a ton of TV shows as well. And Thomas Ian Griffith is Valak, the main master vampire. And basically, this film was a chance for Carpenter to do a Western. A horror Western, but a Western nonetheless. And as we open up, we're in New Mexico. It's very gothic Southwestern in this movie. And James Woods, Jack Crow, is standing there with binoculars looking at this house out in the middle of nowhere. And they've tracked vampires to this home, and they think there's going to be a master inside. So they raid the house in a spectacular opening scene, and they kill all these vampires. It's very exciting. It's very cool stuff. I love how the vampires burst into flames when they drag them out in the sunlight. But the master's not there, and Jack is very distressed about that. He thought it would have been there, but it wasn't there. They start pulling out to go back to their hotel, and we see these hands come up from the dirt, and we see Valak for the first time. Now, they're partying back at this hotel. They're planning on leaving this small town, and they have hookers there, and they're drinking and partying. And Valak shows up and wipes... Well, Mark Boone Jr. is in this film. He was in 30 Days of Night, which I did just the other day. He's not in the movie long, because he opens the door to go get more beer, and Valak's there, puts his hand in him and splits him right up the middle, and his body goes both directions, and blood just spraying everywhere. K&B did the effects in this film, and they did a fantastic job as always. The K&B boys are awesome. And Jack's whole crew is wiped out besides him, Montoya, and this hooker Katrina, who had gotten bitten by Valak. And Jack wants to use her because she's a psychic link with him to track him so they can find him and stick a stake up his ass, as Jack says in the film. And he goes to see a Cardinal Alba, and he learns about a little bit about, he's like, well, he knew my name. I got to kill this one. It's the original vampire. Valak is the original source of the disease, as they say in the film. And basically after this, it's just them trying to track Valak down and stop him before he gets his black cross to finish his ceremony that was done so many hundreds and hundreds of years earlier so that he can walk in the daylight and be unstoppable. And basically, the climax of the film takes place in a small town around this jail where Valak's held up with these other vampires that he's turned. And that is pretty much the movie. And at the end, Montoya, who gets bitten by Katrina during the film, slowly is turning into a vampire, and he protects her. And at the end of the film, even though he was bitten, he still helps Jack kill a bunch of vampires and get freed, because Jack was taken hostage at one point to perform this ritual. And they kill a bunch of vampires. They kill Valak. Jack kills Valak once the sunlight comes up. And Jack lets Montoya and Katrina go, but he tells them, I'm going to give you a 24-hour head start, but you bet your ass I'm coming for you. And he lets him go, and that's pretty much the end of the film. When this movie was released back in 98, when I saw it, I loved it back then, and I still love it to this day. I know Carpenter's 90s films get a lot of shit, but Carpenter made some good films in the 90s. I think very underrated films. I like Body Bags. I love In the Mouth of Madness. To me, is one of the best horror films of the 90s. I think it's a fantastic horror film. I even like Village of the Damned remake. It's not perfect. It has problems, but I enjoy that film. I enjoy Escape from LA, and I love the hell out of Vampires. Now, after this, Carpenter wanted to do Ghosts of Mars, which is not a good film. I can watch it and have fun with it, but it is not a good film. And as we all know, Carpenter kind of sort of retired after that, besides doing 2 episodes of Masters of Horror episodes. One was really good, one was not so good. Cigarette Burns is pretty good, but the other one I didn't really care for. And then he came back and did The Ward, and now he did the score for Halloween 2018. I mean, he does stuff, but he hasn't directed a film since The Ward, which is unfortunate. I wish the man would go back and direct. I don't think it's ever going to happen. But I love Vampires. I love the cast. I think James Woods is great in this role as this head lead vampire hunter. And Daniel Baldwin's great as his sidekick. Cheryl Lee's great as the hooker that kind of gets dragged along because she gets bit. And Tim Guiney's great as Father Adam. Everybody's great across the board. I would give this film an 8.5 out of 10. I really like it. I love the score. Carpenter's score is really cool. I love it. I actually own the soundtrack as well. I own most of the Carpenter soundtracks. I love them. I think his soundtracks are great. His scores. Also in this movie, though, when they after they get away from the initial Valak sieging them at the hotel, the next day they carjack this guy who's getting gas at this gas station. The guy that's at the gas pump with the Buick is none other than Frank Darabont, who wrote and directed Shawshank Redemption. So yeah, he's in this film in a small role. But yeah, 8.5 out of 10 for John Carpenter's Vampires. Have you ever seen this film? What are your thoughts? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I'd greatly appreciate that. Have a great day. Take care of yourselves, and I'll be back soon. Thanks. Bye.